Josh Norman opening up to ESPN the magazine in a piece that hits newsstands this Friday. He's on the cover, offering his opinion on a myriad of subjects, including Roger Goodell, saying the commissioner is horrible. He's straight horrible. He also said the Redskins name isn't offensive to him. Quote, I'm part Native American on both my mom's and my dad's side. It's kind of funny thing, though. A Redskin playing for the Redskins. And speaking of Goodell, Steelers player rep Ramon Foster is hinting at a possible 2021 lockout, saying that the issues are much bigger than pot. Insurance, post-career care, and revenue are more pressing, which means the players must be willing to sit games in 2021. Foster is urging players to save money now in preparation for a lockout over the collective bargaining agreement that will expire after the 2020 season. The bus, Jerome Bettis in the house. Always good to see you. Yeah. And excellent to have a player perspective on this. Do you think the players are overplaying their hand here?
I don't think they're overplaying their hand. Actually, I think they are putting themselves in a good position because they're letting the NFL know right now, they're putting them on notice saying these are issues that are very important to us that we are willing to sit out over. So I think in the long term, I believe it can help the negotiation process. But again, they have to be willing to go through with the threat. It's not, it doesn't do anything if you're not willing to go through it and the players aren't united in this stance.
I don't think it's overboard at all. I think that the players have got to batten down the hatches for this labor negotiation. Now, the going theory, about the NFL Players Union, the reason they get squashed in these negotiations, other than the fact that the NFL is really running a monopoly on professional football in the United States, in the sense that if you're one of the best players in the world, you've trained your whole life since the cradle to be one of the best players at what you do that's highly competitive, so it's such competition for it, and objectively you're up there. You want to get rich doing it, you got to play in the NFL. But there's also this idea that it is with no guaranteed contracts, et cetera, or very few guaranteed, a real substantial portion of the contract, that it's a largely African-American league, and that the labor union, as a result of the idea of from a culture of poverty, you get conspicuous consumption, et cetera, is not going to have the resources or the will to battle with the owners. Now, in the first place, Marcellus Wiley, my former broadcast partner on Sports Nation and on the radio, opened my eyes to the idea that while conspicuous consumption is frequently brought up as it relates to African-American NFL players, in fact, there's also the issue of having to take a generation out of poverty with you when you get your money. But for various reasons, the idea is that given the short nature of the careers, the lack of guarantees, et cetera, and the kind of ethnic makeup of the league, that the league just won't, the Players Association won't have the will to fight the owners. This is a step in the right direction. First of all,
what's a step in the right direction?
That they're battening down the hatches, that they're supposed to be saving for this labor fight, that Josh Norman is saying, hey, get ready, 2021, like we're getting ready to, we may have to not get paid for a while. That is absolutely a step in the right direction. As progress is made in this country along those lines, I think this is a good sign. I think that increased familiarity with what it takes to run a successful union will help the NFL Players Association, and I applaud any player who speaks out on this topic and tells everyone, hey, get ready.
Well, there's two separate topics to consider. If you're talking about Josh Norman, talking about Goodell, he's perfectly within his right to feel the way that he feels. I don't imagine why. It's not like he's James Harrison. It's not like anything happened with him, with Roger Goodell. And when you say Roger Goodell is awful, then you need to substantiate those claims by highlighting what you think he's awful about. But he does have the right to say it. Josh Norman is a name in this game. He just got a huge contract, which I believe he deserved. We move forward from there. When we go to the question of whether or not the players are overplaying their hands, and we talk about Ramon Foster for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would beg to differ with the both of you. I would say they are overplaying their hand. I would say it's ill-advised because, and I'm going to break this down, and you'll appreciate this as a former player, Jerome. Here's where I'm going, Max. As a man who has covered collective bargaining negotiations now for 20 years, public perception is incredibly important when it comes to the players. So, considering what's a big, big deal with players at this juncture, although we know there are a bevy of things to negotiate when it comes to a collective bargaining agreement, in the end, what are the players griping about most conspicuously? it would happen to be the authority of the commissioner when it comes to disciplinary matters. When you bring up the word discipline or disciplinary, well, what are we talking about? Behavior. And when you bring up behavior, who are we talking about? It damn sure ain't the owners. So see what I'm saying? You sort of knock yourself off the pedestal to some degree, because if you're Ramon Foster or you're anybody with the Pittsburgh Steelers, let me be the first to say there's 1,800 players in the National Football League. You'd be hard-pressed to find 15 to 20, more than 15 to 20 that cause problem year to year. The vast majority of NFL players are good dudes, working their tails off, fighting their behinds off to make a career for themselves. I'm not here to cast any aspersions on a body of players. But those few ignorant fools that find themselves in these precarious situations, when you talk about fighting and you talk about the problems of the commissioner, that's where your problem lies. They should shut the hell up. Here's the person who should be speaking. Drew Brees, Bountygate, commissioner overstepping his bounds. You see this guy right here, clean cut, white, star, model citizen, blah, 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 blah. You know who else should be speaking here, Max? Tom Brady. Clean cut, white, superstar, champion, all it. See, you see, time. Here's the problem. Because if you're Ramon Foster and you're complaining, who's your teammate? James Harrison. Good dude, but not the image that I just highlighted. And who are your teammates? Martavis Bryant, who I will deal with later on in the show, that wanted to attack me on Twitter yesterday. I'll deal with that a little bit
Twitter
later.
Beef.
So you got Martavis. There ain't no Twitter beef.
I was making a joke.
Beef is implying that there's a contest. There will not be one.
Okay.
I'll deal with that in a minute.
Beef?
The point is this: you've got Martavis Bryant, who and then you got a guy that I like in Le'Veon Bell. So when we're talking discipline and we're talking behavioral issues, who people gonna think about? They ain't gonna think about the Bountygate. They might think a little bit about the Deflategate, but you know that when they think about it, they're gonna look at the league, they're gonna look at its demographics, and then they're gonna look at the problems they're talking about they mind being disciplined for. You won't have the support, and you certainly won't have the deeper pockets. And as a result, I just think it's ill-advised for them to make this a public argument.
Well, but let me stop you there.
Sure.
There was never, ever a mention of the authority from the commissioner. Obviously, that was from a standpoint of the collective bargaining agreement, it was agreed to.
Yes.
All right? They feel he's overstepped his bounds, but they cannot argue that it was agreed to. The points that he's bringing up are issues that have not been agreed to. So in terms
like
of insurance, when you speak of insurance, these are issues that players have after 5 years, you get no insurance. That is a huge issue because now the players aren't, they're playing the game. They don't realize what happens when they retire. So now they're being brought up to speed on that. So these are some issues that he's speaking of that needs to be addressed. And these are deal breakers. That's the point that he's trying to make.
That's
and
fair.
so he's not necessarily talking about that because what you got to understand is, from a player perspective, I'm not going to fight for guys that are screwing up. Okay? If you're screwing up, you're screwing up. Now, I will fight for the integrity of the commissioner's control. Now, you can't do some of these things. Now, I'll argue that fact, and I may put that in the collective bargaining agreement. But,
I get that,
but
Jerome,
what he's speaking of are some issues that are different.
But here's what's unfair about your argument. You're speaking from an insider's.
Well,
let me finish.
I'm speaking from what he said.
That's where I'm going. Wait, my point. I'm going there. You're speaking from a position of knowledge because you know him, you know what the players feel, you know what they want to address. I'm saying on the outside and looking in, you and I both know that both the players and the owners volley back and forth in terms of trying to win the battle in the court of public opinion when you're talking about a lockout as opposed to a strike. So what I am saying is, from a public perception standpoint, is right as you are about the bare substance of what the argument may be. Also, and ultimately, what you're going after is the authority of the commissioner on disciplinary matters, because that's what we hear players griping about. It's why you hear Josh Norman call the commissioner horrible, just horrible. It's why you saw James Harrison going off. Yeah. It's why you see these things. And
but
I'm
he's
saying
bringing light to different issues.
But I'm saying because of that, understand, you might get those other matters addressed, and that's fair. But what they act as if their primary issue is, which is the disciplinary power of the commissioner, you're not going to win that.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that is the primary issue. He's saying it's much bigger than disciplinary power. He's saying insurance, post-career care, and revenue, which, by the way, the general public will be broadly sympathetic to that when they hear,
absolutely.
They want post-career care. They want stuff like that.
Y'all are right. I'm saying y'all are right. They will win that. But that issue that they ultimately after as well, they will not get that.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
But I bet you they'll sacrifice discipline for post-career care and insurance.
And by the way, and
revenue.
And they'll have the support of it. They'll have the support of the public.
But listen, more importantly, you have to understand from the player's perspective, the last time they were locked out, it was deemed as though it was a player's fault. So now what they're doing, they're trying to get the public to see now ahead of time, 5 years early.
Yeah, you better make sure.
That it's not us.
And telling the union, and telling the union, stop spending money.
Right.
You better put some money aside for a rainy day.
How about that?
Absolutely.
Who's been saying that? Who's been saying that for months? Who? That would be me. Stop spending the players' money.
Why are you so mad at Foster then? He's saying it.
No. He's not saying that about his own union. Not nearly enough. They're spending too much of the players' money on nonsense.
Oh, no. I'm talking about
but he's talking
personal
about the
finance.
players. He's talking about the players, and he wants to make sure everybody's batting down the hatches so they understand the significance of what's
I agree with him on that.
But also trying to gain a little bit of that public trust in that, hey, the owners are taking advantage of us. We need to change this.
Okay.
Jerome, thank you for your perspective on this. Making some time. We'll see you later on Live.
Yeah. His voice.
Coming up, that's what happens when you come on this show, trying to keep up with you two. Coming up, Kevin Durant said the Olympics were like therapy for him. We'll explain why he said that and react. You don't want to miss this conversation next.